The Great Quincy Auction is back on WTAD. Tune in at 9:30 the first 2 Saturday mornings of December and be part of some great fun and even greater savings. How much? Up to 50% in some cases. Go to GreatQuincyAuction.com right now and see all we have to offer. We've got deals from some of the best restaurants in the area, washer-dryer combinations, fuel-saving transportation, and much more. Get ready to dial and smile December 7th and 14th during the Great Quincy Auction on WTAD.
I've got about 2 minutes after 7. We'll get started. I'm not sure if it's a comment on me or what, but garbage draws more people than the schools. I'm not really sure how that plays out. But anyways, thank you for coming out tonight. For those that may not know me, my name is Joel Murphy. I'm the business manager for the school district. Part of my charge that the board has given me over the last couple of months is to look at our facilities and come up with some plans to meet the needs that we might have with facilities. We've had a series of public forums back in October that went through trying to provide us some help in providing some parameters and guidance, and I'll go through those a little bit here as far as our agenda here. The purpose tonight is basically to get some additional input on the set of proposals that we have to address our aging facilities and provide students with an education to be successful in the increasing technology-driven world. As far as our referendum, we're going to review the planning parameters and guidance that we use for developing the recommendations. We're going to review the different plan options that we have. We'll look at some potential cost savings based upon those plan options, and then look at some of the financing options that we have for these plans. To start with, just to kind of go through the planning parameters and such, based upon public input that we have, the online surveys that we had, and board input, these were kind of the things that helped us guide or shape the plans that we have. We want to establish a grade configuration of kindergarten to 5th grade at the elementary schools, a 6th through 8th grade junior high middle school concept, and then look at a 9th grade through 12th grade high school. At the elementary level, as far as looking at the schools themselves, we want to reduce the number of elementary buildings we have, creating fewer, larger buildings, but also maintaining the current class sizes. So we're not looking to have 30, 40, 50 kids in a classroom. We're looking to maintain their current class sizes and some, which is in the low 20s average across the district. At the high school and junior high level is basically maintain our current sizes and number of facilities. So again, we had kind of explored some of the possibilities of 2 junior highs versus 1. Kind of explored some of the possibilities of 2 junior highs. Stick with 1 junior high, and then obviously we'll just have the 1 high school. As far as on historic preservation, the feeling was, and the feedback kind of came back, where feasible and cost effective, preserve the facilities that can be renovated to accommodate the 21st century. Be able to do the computers, upgrade the energy efficient building systems and those types of things. So that's kind of where we're at as far as looking at the historic preservation. Plan for neighborhood schools, and what was felt was a good definition of that is that those are schools that serve a specific geographic area that are within close proximity and easily accessible either walking or by vehicle. This one's probably a little tougher to read here. We want to plan for optimal learning environments, provide for safe and secure buildings, provide optimal indoor air quality, incorporate natural light where feasible, incorporate sustainable energy efficient construction and operating methods, provide for current and emerging technologies in all classrooms, provide for flexible space to accommodate the changes in the instructional program, and then incorporate a balance between upfront cost and future operating costs and potential savings. So obviously some of the newer energy efficient equipment costs a little bit more than standard stuff, but in the long term we'll get a payoff based upon the energy savings that we might have with those. As far as an alternate use for our facilities, where feasible and cost effective, use our vacated facilities for alternate district uses. If we can't, then we're going to look at selling the buildings that are unable to be reused by the district. Just to remind everybody, our current configuration, we're working with 7 elementary buildings that are K3, Adams, Berrien, Dewey, Ellington, Madison, and Monroe. Those 7 schools feed into Baldwin, school that we have right here, which is a 4-6 arrangement. Then they go to the junior high at 7-9, and finally on to the high school at 10-12. So what are the plans that we have out there to address our needs? Plan 1, and this was kind of presented to the board in an overview last week, is to move to a K-5 configuration with K-5 at the elementary, 6-8 at the junior high, and a 9-12 grade configuration. At the elementary level, what that means is that we would need 6 4-section buildings. In other words, 4 sections, meaning 4 classes of kindergarten, 4 classes of first grade, second grade, et cetera, et cetera. The 600 capacity comes into the fact of just trying to plan for how big the building is and what the building can hold. And that's based upon utilizing 25 kids a classroom. Does that mean we're going to start moving all our class sizes up to 25? No. We will maintain the class sizes that we can, but in planning how big the building is and how we would staff it, we're looking at it at 25 kids a classroom. With that, we're looking at building 3 new, in this plan we call for 3 new schools, and then 3 existing schools would receive additions and renovations to bring them up to that 4 sections. At the junior high, we would move 6th grade out. Our 6th grade would move into the junior high as soon as the additions and renovations we've done at the high school, where we can move then 9th grade out of the junior high and then over to the high schools. The junior high is also in this plan would receive, the junior high would receive some repairs and renovations, bringing it back up. I mean, there's just some, because of the age of the building and things like that, you know, doors, windows, and things that need to be repaired and brought up to a better standard than where they are right now. As far as arrangement then goes, we were looking at 6 schools feeding into 6 K-5 buildings, feeding into a 6-8 junior high, which then would feed into a 9-12 high school. As far as the building configurations and capacities, you can kind of see here, what we're looking at as far as 3 new schools would be a Monroe replacement, a Dewey, and that would be built on the Monroe site. We're looking for a Dewey school replacement, which would be built on the Dewey site. And then the Barry Ann school replacement, we're looking to use the Irving site. So we'll be using existing sites that we have in the district and trying to utilize as best we can. As far as the additions and renovations to the elementary schools, we're looking to add a 2-story addition onto Adams School, a 2-story addition onto, that should be Washington, I'm sorry, Washington School, and a 2-story addition onto Baldwin, or we would do some renovations here at Baldwin to make Baldwin then a K-5 elementary school. We would save part of the building here, particularly the auditorium, the round room here, the cafeteria, and Blue Devil Gym would be saved, and then we would use areas to the south and west of this area to establish a K-5 elementary school here at Baldwin. The junior high would maintain its location and its size, and then we would add on to do some additions and renovations at the high school to accommodate 9th grade coming in there. Now, I've said this before, and I want to emphasize it. We're just not adding classrooms on to accommodate 500 kids, 9th graders coming over for the junior high. What we want to do is look at the building, bring it up to 21st century standards. I mean, the science labs and things like that were built back in the 70s, and things have changed, how science is done. So we, looking to look at that STEM, the science, technology, and math types of things, and try to incorporate that into new buildings and do renovations to the existing building. And again, not just add classrooms, but it may be a fact that we build a new science lab and then a current science lab that gets changed into 2 classrooms or something along those lines. So we'll make some determinations when we move how that would work as we plan forward. Basically, total then of building capacity would be about 7,500 students that we'd be able to handle throughout our district. As far as an alternate use of facilities, what we're looking at or thinking at this point is that Ellington would be utilized as a district support center. We would move our transportation operation over there. Right now we operate both out of Flynn Stadium and off 20th Street. We have a building there. We would consolidate all our buses and such at Ellington to improve our operation. Right now our staff and our dispatch and things like that are on the 20th Street, yet most of our buses are out at Flint Stadium. So there's some issues with communications and stuff, and bringing them all in will improve that. We're also looking to move our maintenance operation over into Ellington. Currently it's at the a shop on the 7th Street. And then also our warehouse and storage operation, which is also on 7th Street, would move into Ellington. Berry Ann we'd use as the, we would move the alternate school that's in the basement of the Board of Education office over to Berry Ann. It actually was at one time, I was told, the alternate school for the district, so it's kind of coming back around there. One of the reasons why we're looking to do that is that program, we'd like to be able to expand that program, but right now we don't have the space at the board office to be able to expand that program, add some lower grades and things like that. So moving it to Berry Ann gives it some extra space. It provides it its own gym and cafeteria and things like that that they don't currently have in the board basement. So for them it would be a good move over to Berry Ann. Unfortunately, after looking at it, analyzing it, running the cost numbers and what it would take to do it, Madison just doesn't work as far as being able to add on to or being able to work with. One of the problems that we get into when we start opening up, adding on things to existing buildings, we wind up having to bring them up to code. Things like the American with Disabilities Act, make them handicap accessible, plumbing codes, those types of things. And the cost for doing that just got a little bit prohibitive. That and the fact it just sits on such a small site and there's no place to expand that site. I mean, there's not like there's additional land that we could acquire. So it really wasn't cost effective to utilize Madison in our plans here. So we're looking to sell Madison. The good news is Madison probably has the best market value of our schools where it's located and such. I mean, it's in a very nice area, and I think the Park District and their experience with what they've recently sold, there are buyers out there that would be looking to probably acquire that and be able to convert that easily to apartments or condos or some type of use for the building. And then the 7th Street Maintenance Building, we would look at selling that also. The estimated project cost, and we've spent some time trying to refine these numbers as best we can so that we're trying to get an accurate picture as possible of what this is going to cost us. As far as the new schools, they are going to cost us a total of $40.9 million. You can see the first one, Monroe, is going to cost us $14.1 million. We're estimating what it would cost, and the other ones are coming in at $13.4. Why the difference? What we're looking at here is to do a prototype school. Basically, it would be the same plan at all 3 locations. It's just that first one costs a little bit more to plan and work with, and then we reap the savings on subsequent buildings. So that's why the cost difference there. As far as the renovations and additions, Adams is with its 2-story addition is about $5.2 million. Washington, again, is a 2-story addition. That's about $7.4 million. And then the renovations here at Baldwin to make it a K-5 building will be about $7.1 million for a total of $19.7 million. We're estimating the renovations and such at the junior high will cost about $1.4 million. And then adding on to the high school and doing the renovations there is another $13.4 million. So under Plan 1, our total projected cost is $75.4 million. There's a couple different ways that we can look at implementing this particular plan. And the first one is what I call the total package, basically doing it at one time or going for the whole package and then doing the construction series at one time versus doing one project and then waiting to see how the voters feel and those things of things, and then building another, and then doing another referendum, building another. So in this particular case, the first one we're having is the total packages. We putting forward that we would do all the projects over obviously a couple of years, but then at the end of those 4 or 5 years, we would be done with construction. At the end of those 4 or 5 years, we would be done with construction of grades and such like that. Basically, this would take 3 construction seasons to accomplish, and a construction season is typically between 15 and 18 months to be able to construct a building. 15 months is what we were hoping we can do it. That's a very aggressive time frame, but I think with some good planning and stuff like that, we should be able to accomplish that. During that first construction season, we would build 3 new elementary schools. We'd put on the additions on renovations to the Quincy High School, and then we would also start the repairs and renovations to the Quincy Junior High School. And what I mean by that is the junior high would probably get work just during the summer versus not during throughout the school year. We would just try to get as much work as we can do during the summer. During the second construction season, we would put the additions and renovations onto Adams and Washington, and then the repairs and such would continue at the junior high. And then finally, that third season would start the renovations here at Baldwin and finish up the repairs and renovations at the junior high. What does that mean as far as a transition for students and how it would work out? Starting with the 2014-15 school year, we would maintain basically the current grade configurations that you have right now. The kids that would be going to the schools that are out there would continue going to those schools. We would start the construction, obviously, on the 3 new schools, but wouldn't make any changes for next school year. On the 2015-16 school year, we would implement the first phase of the new elementary school grade and school assignment. And basically, students would be assigned who would be assigned to the new buildings would go to the new buildings, and then the students that would be assigned to the schools that would be receiving renovations and such would actually come here to Baldwin. We would set up Baldwin as basically three elementary schools, separate elementary schools. They'd have their principal, they'd have their own teachers and such like that. But we would, house them here at Baldwin, while at that point then we can go in and do the construction at Adams and Washington without having to worry about having students in the building at the same time that we're trying to do, construction work and things like that. So, and then finally, then we would move 6th grade over to the junior high, and then would move the 9th grade over to the high school because the addition at the high school would be finished, hopefully. The 2016-2017 school year then we'd implement the second phase of that, and basically the students that would be assigned to Adams and Washington, who would be housed here, would then move to Adams and Washington because they would be completed, and then we would still have one kind of elementary school off to itself here at Baldwin, which would be Baldwin's, but again, the work on Baldwin wouldn't start until after we were able to move out Washington and Adams. And then finally, the 2017-18 school year would be the final phase where the students for Baldwin would be moved into the renovated areas here at Baldwin. Kind of look at it, a timeline factor here. These are the yellow is the construction work, and you can see we start our construction work the end of next school year, or the end of this school year actually, would go through all of 2014-15 of construction and would be able to open up starting 2015. Once we get to that point, then we'd start the construction for Adams and Washington, and then finally for Baldwin. This first year, then we would maintain our current school and grade assignments, and would also take the time at that point to plan for how we would divide the town up, and that's a whole process in itself that we would go through as far as establishing the new elementary school boundaries and where kids would wind up going to school. At that point, then we would be able to implement that first assignment here in the 2015-16 school year, and then again the next phase would be here in the 2016-17, and the final phase then on the implementation would be done in the 17-18 school year. And then you can see at the bottom here, as far as the 6-8, the various summer construction that we have at the junior high, and then the implementation of the new grade alignments for them, and also for the high school here then. The other option is to look at phasing this over a couple of years, and the thought would be is that we would go for a smaller referendum up front and do an additional amount of work, and then when that work was completed, going back to the voters again for the next phase of how that would work. And what would happen with phase 1 then is we would build one new elementary school, and we're thinking it would be the Dewey site. Dewey is probably our school that's going to require the most work in the next couple of years if we continue to utilize it as a school, and we think that would be the first one that we'd like to replace if we only could do one. The projected cost on that is $14.1 million. And then we would do the renovations and additions to Washington. Again, that's what we think is probably the next school that would be best served by moving forward with some of this project. That's a $7.4 million estimate. And then we do the additions and renovations on the high school, which is $13.4 million, and then the repairs and stuff like that at the junior high at $1.4 million. So the total cost for phase 1 would be $36.3 million. Phase 2 then would be to build the 2 new elementary schools at Monroe and Irving. The cost there would be $26.8 million. And then the final phase would be to do the additions and renovations onto Adams, the additions and renovations here at Adams, or excuse me, here at Baldwin. That phase was $12.3 million, and the total of all 4 phases is $75.4 million. How that would work with student transitions, though, is in the 2014-15 school year, again, we would maintain the current grade configuration. We'd have to develop a new grade and school assignments for 24 sections. And basically, we'd still need to use Adams at 3 sections. We'd have to use Berrien at 2 sections. We'd have to use Madison at 2 sections. And we have to use Monroe at 2 sections. We'd also have to repurpose Baldwin to wind up being 2 4-section K-5 centers. So we'd still have 2 schools or students operating out of here, out of Baldwin, during the phase 1 operation. Then starting at the 2015-16 school year, we'd implement the first phase, which would move the kids to the new elementary school and move the new elementary school and the ability of having more students going into Washington. We'd move 6th grade to the junior high school and move 9th grade to the high school. What that does, though, is we still need to maintain Adams, Berrien, Madison, and Monroe as far as schools at that point. Phase 2 then goes, I don't know. I can't give you a year because we don't know. The first opportunity, if we passed a referendum in March, the first opportunity that we would have to the next one would be a year from April. And if we don't get that one, then goes to a year from there, from March. And if the voters don't approve the second round of the process here of the plan, then basically we're stuck at phase 1 of the plan and still having to use Baldwin as it is, and some of our older facilities as they are, and basically would just have to look at what we could do as far as moving forward with the different phases. Again, even if we got to the different phases, we would implement the second phase of the elementary grade realignments. We'd still need to use Adams at its 3-section. We'd have to repurpose Baldwin just down to 2 schools versus the 3. And then we would have the 2 new 4-section buildings at Monroe and Irving, and then, of course, the new school at Dewey and Washington during phase 2. And then finally, phase 3 would be to renovate Adams, renovate Baldwin, and then that would give us the ability to finally get into the 6 4-section elementary arrangement, K-5 arrangement. Plan 2 is a little different. This kind of came out of some conversations with Borden and a couple other people of looking. Our greatest need right now is really at the elementary level, and how can we first focus on the elementary level. And the thought was, if we move to a K-6 arrangement, maintain our 7, 9, 10, 12 grade configuration, what would that look like, how we could do it. And basically in that situation, we're in phase 1, we're looking at a total cost of $66.4 million. It's the same elementary portion of, for the most part, of Plan 1, except that we would be having a K-6 arrangement. So instead of having a 600 capacity building, we're looking at having a 700 capacity building. So we're going to have to add additional classrooms and some additional auxiliary spaces based upon this having a K-6 arrangement. So the schools come out a little bit more expensive, about $1 million each in that thing. So we're looking at the 3 new schools would be $43.9 million, and the additions and renovations on the other 3 would be $22.6 million. There would be nothing done to the junior high or to the high school at this point under phase 1. The second phase then would look at we would have our 6 4-section elementary schools. We would start the repairs and renovations on the junior high, and then we'd be looking at the additions and renovations to the high school. So the renovations at the junior high is $1.4 million. The high school addition and renovations is $13.4. So a total cost of both phase 1 and phase 2 of $81.3 million in that particular plan. And the arrangement there, again, similar to the others, it would just be a K-6, 7, 8, 9, 12 type of arrangement. Plan 3 is pretty much Plan 1 with one exception, and that's being, instead of having renovating 3 buildings, we'd only renovate 2 buildings and actually build a 4th new elementary school. That new school would most likely would be here at Baldwin, most likely, at the Baldwin site, so that we could take advantage of the gym and cafeteria and things like that. So we'd have to figure out how to incorporate those into the new building. The 2 existing schools that would receive additions would be brought up to 4 sections. And again, so 6th grade, the junior high would receive 6th grade, 9th grade would move to the high school, and those types of things. Again, the same type of arrangement, except we would only have 2 renovated schools and 4 new schools in this arrangement. The cost on this, again, the new schools would be $54.3 million. The renovations would be $12.6 million. The junior high would cost $1.4 million, and the high school additions and renovations would be $13.4 million for a total of $81.7 million. The phasing on this would be almost identical to the Plan 1 type of phasing, so I didn't really go through a whole process of showing how that would work, because it would basically be the same type of thing. In moving forward and looking at this, there are some potential cost savings and cost savings / avoidance that we could accomplish this by building the new schools and renovating our existing schools. The first one is in our school operation itself. We're basically moving from 10 elementary attendance centers, our 7 elementary schools plus 3 attendance centers here at Baldwin at our 4-6, so that down to 6. We would have 6 K-5 types of buildings. So there are some direct savings there that we can look at in administration. I mean, obviously we're not going to have as many buildings. We would have, you know, our nurses, food service, and things like that could be consolidated and moved down. So there's some direct savings there. There's also some indirect savings in regards to, we have a lot of itinerant staff that move from building to building that lose time by moving, that they're not able to be with kids and stuff like that. By consolidating down, most likely they won't be moving and stuff like that, so we'll have more ability to serve more students and things like that. So there's a kind of an indirect cost there that's a little bit tougher to nail down. But in this particular case, we're looking at a potential savings between $750,000 or $750,000 to $850,000 in regards to school operations. As far as building maintenance goes, currently our cost per square foot is about $4.73 a square foot to heat, light, clean, operate our buildings. And projected costs based upon moving to more cost savings, more energy efficient type of construction and heating and air conditioning systems and such, we're looking at a projected cost per square foot of about $4.57. So potential savings about 16 cents a square foot. It doesn't sound like much, but when you start putting it with our current square footage of 1,141,000 square feet at $4.73 a foot, that's $5.4 million. Because of what we're doing, we're going to take down some buildings that we have square footage wise, so we're actually losing square footage, and that takes us down to 1,068,000, and the cost there at $4.57 is $5.3 million. So there's almost $90,000 of savings that we can look at in the operating our buildings through this. And then another area is transportation. Currently, right now, we have what we call a 4-tier busing system. We have, the elementary, we have Baldwin, we have the junior high, and we have the high school. By going to the K-5 arrangement, we can move down to a 3-tier busing system, K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12, and that's going to approximately eliminate about 10 bus routes. By doing that, and salary and benefits for that drivers and such is about $210,000, and then the equipment is about another $220,000. So we're looking in transportation of saving about $430,000 if we were to go to the K-5 arrangement. We also have a cost avoidance when it comes to life safety work, and life safety work is basically large projects that we do on our facilities to maintain our facilities. It's not, we can't use life safety dollars to expand the facilities. There's only certain improvements that we can do with life safety dollars. And in the last 20 years, we've actually spent $52 million, almost $53 million on life safety projects in our buildings to keep them, to maintain them. over the next 20 years with current buildings that we have, not adding any new ones, not making any changes, just the buildings that we have a potential of about $71.6 million of life safety work. Obviously, in 20 years, there's going to be roofs we're going to have to replace. There's going to be heating systems that we're going to have to replace. So there's some very large ticket items out there that need to be replaced over the next 20 years. With next 20 years, if we were able to implement the new building program, our potential for life safety work drops down to $11.7 million. So we're looking at potential cost avoidance of almost $60 million during that 20-year period for life safety work. Financing options. This is probably where everybody wants to look at and get into the numbers here. Basically, there's really only two ways that the school, for the most part, can finance any type of new construction. One is the traditional bonds, building bonds, to issue traditional building bonds. Those are similar to a home mortgage. We go out and get a specific dollar amount. We pay interest and principal on it over a certain amount of time. They're issued an amount up to a voter-approved limit. The voters have to give the school district permission to sell these bonds, and that dollar amount is part of the referendum ballot. And then there's a separate tax levy to pay for the annual principal and interest on those bonds. Another newer mechanism that's just come into the schools in probably the last 5-10 years is the county school facility sales tax. This is a sales tax of up to 1% on sales within the county. Not everything is taxed at the 1%. Food, large items, boats, cars, things like that are not taxed. They're exempt from that. And you can basically do three things with this money then, is you can directly pay for capital projects. So if you have a small project and there's enough sales tax generated, you can do that without issuing bonds. You can issue new bonds and pledge a portion of the dollars that would be generated through the sales tax, or you can take the dollars that you're collecting through the sales tax and actually pay off existing debt. And so in that particular case, the sales tax can be used to lower the property tax. Because then you wouldn't have to levy a tax to pay off the existing debt. With the traditional, issuing traditional bonds would require voter approval. It's a referendum. We can't do it without going to the voters. We can't do it without a positive vote. And so that's something that the voters and the taxpayers have a say in what to do. The approval is to sell a specific dollar amount for specific projects. On the ballot, it will say, authorize the, Quincy Public School District 172 to sell X, amount of bonds to build 3 elementary schools, renovate, and additions to 3 elementary schools, and that would be all spelled out on the ballot as far as what can be done, what the dollars would be used for. It can't be used for other work that's not on the ballot. So, if good fortune comes through and our buildings are coming in less than what we estimated, I can't use that, the excess dollars that I would have to, go out and buy Dennis a new truck here, or those things like that. I can only use it for what was specifically laid out in the on the ballot. There'd be separate tax levy, as I said, to pay the annual principal and interest, and the maturity limit on it is 20 years. So that's the maximum we can take it out. Right now we have 4 bonds outstanding, 4 bond issues outstanding. We have a 2008 issue with about $3.7 million of outstanding, and the date of maturity on that one is 2022. We have another one, a 2010 bond that was issued with an outstanding issue of 5.3. That is going to mature in 2016. We have another 2012 A bonds that's outstanding of $7.1 million. Those mature in February 2019. And then finally, we have a 2012 general obligation bonds with an outstanding balance of $10.5 million, and those actually come due. The maturity on that is February 2017. There's an opportunity for us here for issuing new bonds. Because the 3 bonds will be maturing in the next 3 months, bond and interest rates will fall. If we do nothing, the bond and interest rates will fall with the bond retirements. We're currently projecting the bond and interest rates here in 2012. 2012, they were 63 cents on the $100 of EAV. In 2013, we're projecting 79 cents. It's a little bump the way the bonds were structured, some of the bonds the way they were sold. Just so everybody understands here, we've adjusted the other levies that we have so that we will be maintaining the same tax rate that we had last year to this year. So it's not going to be necessarily an increase on your taxes. We're trying to adjust it so that there is no increase. Even though the bond rate is going up, we're adjusting other rates to make it even. Then it goes down to 60 cents and then drops to 53 and then to 26. So you can see it starts coming down dramatically as we move out to 2016. Right now, there is a limit as far as what we can borrow, and that's 13.5% of our EAV minus any of the outstanding bonds that we have. And with that, we could go out, our debt limit then would be $84 million. With that then, we can structure new bonds in a fashion so that the payments, what we would do, the money that we need to collect to pay the bond and interest on it, would not increase the debt rate beyond the 2013 tax rate. So we could go out and build all these buildings and provide great facilities for our kids and great facilities for our community without raising the tax rate, significantly raising the tax rate. On an $80 million issue, we've had our financial consultants kind of run some of the numbers. We're looking at a projected bond and interest rate that would average about 67 cents for $100 of assessed valuation over the next 20 years. So again, that's about where our rate is at. As you can see, right now we're at 63. We're projecting we go up to 79. We'll drop to the 76. There's again, how they're structured is 70 cent one in there, and then drop to 66 and maintain them right around that 67 cent mark for the bond and interest rate. So we have a good opportunity there to be able to do some work and not have a major impact upon the tax rate. With the county facility sales tax, again, like the other one, it still requires a referendum. The difference being is that it's for the entire county. It's not just the Quincy that would vote on it. It's the entire Adams County. And it also doesn't, on the ballot, the language doesn't say what you can do with the money. It just says to set up and establish a 1% county facility sales tax. With that 1%, though, it would generate approximately $4.7 million annually for Quincy Public Schools. With that, then, we can do, like I said, we could do $4 million a year of projects if that's, what the board and such would, committee would like us to do. We could issue new bonds. With that, though, there's restrictions. You only issue up to 85%. You only pledge about 85% of what your proceeds are towards the bonds. And with that, it would generate, that would support about $51.2 million. And then we could also, again, as I talked about earlier, retire existing bonds. All right, what's our next steps here? Obviously, for me, I need to report back to the board. They have a special board meeting on the 10th at 5:30 at the Board of Education office. Anybody interested? We're looking to seek probably some additional input. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get an online survey done before the 10th, but we're looking to get an online survey out there. We've also had some meetings, and we'll continue meeting with some of the staff to kind of go through these plans and get their input on it. And then we'll refine our options and then make a final report and recommendation to the board on December 18th. That's at Madison at 7 o'clock if anybody's interested in being there. So with that, I'm done, and I guess I'll take questions. Jeff?
Yes, the 1 cent sales tax. You said for the bonds it would basically run for 20 years. When would the 1 cent sales tax expire?
1 cent sales tax never expires. Once it's in there, it's in there. Yep. So that's an annual thing. Yes, ma'am. Well, here's the problem. The sales tax will only generate $50 million. If we wanted to do the total package, we're at $75 million. So there's not enough money in the sales tax to do the total package. So we have to go to the phase plan if they were only do the sales tax, or we'd have to go to a traditional bond type of sale. Now, that's not to say that we can't go to the traditional bonds and then sometime down the road look at passing the sales tax and then using those proceeds to pay off those types of bonds. But in this particular case, our choices are either, if we're going to go to the total package, is to sell bonds. We couldn't do that with just the sales tax. Yes. Oh, yeah. We could just sell bonds. We don't have to do the sales tax at all. Yep. Jim?
I have two questions. First of all, when we gave the example on the savings, like, for example, the transportation cost, I don't remember that number, what it was exactly. Is that a yearly savings?
That's an annual savings.
That's an annual savings, so that's not something over 20 years or something?
No, all of those, the only one that's over a 20-year savings, or it's more the cost avoidance, is the life safety. Otherwise, the operational cost, the maintenance cost, and the transportation costs are annual savings.
Okay. And then my second question, that tax rate that you just had up, I think it was 67%, so I could go back and issue the bonds. That it was
Right.
kind of quick, I wasn't writing things down. How does that rate compare with other districts comparable to our size across the state of Illinois?
To be honest, I don't know. I've not done that. I mean,
That's something that could be brought up to, like, because I know there's some districts probably that are much higher than us, and there's probably other districts that are lower than us, but I think if voters are going to be asking to vote on this, they would probably like to know where that kind of locks in compared to, you know, a Champaign or Banner or Springfield or Decatur or Quincy or even Moline and places like that.
Yeah. We can do that. Bill? 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 Correct. Correct.
In other words, if it comes in, can't put it in the ed fund, can't use it for education, can't use it for anything else, you can only use it for the facility.
And actually, you can't even pay salaries out of it. It would only be able to, for contracted work and stuff like that, that you could use it for. And buying materials and things like that, but we couldn't use it to offset the cost of our custodial staff or our maintenance staff. Yes, sir.
Your life safety amount that you spent in the last bit, what projects, large projects specifically, does that include? Because I know some of the life safety stuff is kind of a strange definition. Things like the parking lot and stuff like that, improvements, so it's not necessarily on building.
No, it's not necessarily on building. We've been able to do some of the life safety work for parking lots, but the major projects that we've done with it is, most recently, is the upgrade to the HVAC system at the high school. Dennis, help me here. Roofs, yeah, roofs and doors, windows.
Well, I'm just saying that I know there are other things in there, and it's kind of a misleading thing when you say everybody assumes life safety to be things like heating. You really got to have it. I know there's a lot of things that were included in there that wouldn't meet the common definition.
Well, an interesting thing about life.
It's legal and
Right.
the way you got to use it.
Yes.
But I don't think most people would attribute the cost of the parking lot to the maintenance of the building.
Okay. One of the interesting about life safety, though, is you can't use life safety dollars to upgrade the building for handicap accessibility. So if we wanted to, and that's probably about, to bring our buildings up to code in regards to ADA, we're probably looking at between $5 and $7 million just to do that. And we can't use life safety dollars to do that. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
One of those phases, you have K through 5, 3 sections of K through 5 here at Baldwin.
Yes.
So why are we building more new schools? Why can't we keep them here?
Well, part of the problem, Baldwin is, if you've been through some of the classrooms here at Baldwin, we have some big classrooms here that are only about 650 square feet, and to,
But even maybe if you could do 2 K through 5 here, and that would save on one building, one new additional 13 million.
the cost to put into here to bring it up to where we'd like to have probably would equal to or be greater than building the 2 new buildings. Yeah. I mean, the renovations alone, just to make this 1 K3 building is over $7 million. So, and at 2 of those, we're talking that's right at $14 million, which is what we're talking for a new building. Yes, sir.
These 3 plans you have, are you stuck with these 3 plans, or can you
It changes on a daily basis. Sure, always.
I have a different plan, I've talked to numerous people, they think it would work really well.
Okay.
I could talk for a while. The plan that we talked about was, first thing is build a new high school. Okay, from 9 through 12. And build it up by 20. Okay. All your athletic fields are scattered everywhere. It would bring them all together, it would bring everything together, build a new gym for basketball, stuff like that. We have a brand new high school for 9 through 12. Okay. Okay, 6 through 8, just go to junior high. Okay? Now you have a senior high school right here, but you keep the grades in now. So just add on to that high school. And you can put K through 5, community building. Everybody goes to the same spot. Now, the days of elementary schools in the neighborhoods, I mean, that's in the past. I live at 1500 Kentucky. My sons both went to Madison. I can't get a bus to come pick them up. That's a long way to Madison School.
Mile and a half.
I've had to drive them to school and pick them up every day for the last four years in a row with both my sons. Okay? Because I can't get bus fare.
Yep.
People today, their moms and dads that both work, I bet if you looked up at the transfer rate where a person lives in this school district, I bet they don't go to that school. I bet they go to a different school that they go. So now you would cut down to 3 schools, period. You could take all the rest of them, sell them, do whatever, and you would only have 3 schools.
We actually did look at that type of arrangement. The problem becomes is building a new high school is the cost.
Why would that cost more than building all these other ones? And then you're renovating old buildings, adding on to cobbling them up. A lot of them are already cobbled up.
Agreed. Agreed.
The other thing is, I'm watching your plan, my sons are in the school district, and they're for about 4 years, 5 years, they're going this way, that way, this way, that way. That's
Yep.
craziness to me. So what you could do is you could build a brand new high school, and it would not bother anyone. You could add on to this senior high, make it a K through 5, one community K through 5.
Okay, and I understand where you're going for, but let's go back. Let's go back to the planning parameters. Let's go back to the planning parameters that were established, that the board has recognized, and that community input we got recognized. And the community said, basically, hands down, they wanted to go to a K-5, 6-8, 9-12 arrangement. Okay, and then, but then also, within those planning parameters, was the neighborhood school concept. And the neighborhood school that we defined it was serving a specific geographic area that was easily accessible via walking or vehicle. It doesn't mean that it's total walkable, but it has to be accessible. So again, doing what you're doing doesn't necessarily fit the parameters that our board has directed us to do. We looked at that. I mean, if you're familiar, I was a great proponent and still, not quite off my soapbox, but I think we need to go to a K-8 type of arrangement. And there are some advantages and things like that going in those arrangements. But that didn't fit, that didn't.
For 13 years in the school district, only 4 of those years are going to the neighborhood school. The other 9 years are going to a spot with everybody else.
Understand?
So just change it, but everybody's going to the same spot for the entire 13 years you're in school.
Yeah, understand.
You're gonna, I guarantee, I work construction also, I guarantee it's gonna cost less to build one new high school and add on to this one than it is going to.
Respectfully, I'll disagree with you on the cost, because I've built new high schools and I know what they cost and what it takes to build a new high school. And it exceeds the $75 million that we have labeled out here. So, yes, ma'am. Well, the idea here of what we're going to do is, once we know that we're going to build the 3 schools and the schools that we're going to renovate, we would establish the boundaries for those schools. So you would know where your students are going to go before they go there. And if your students were going to continue at Madison, then they would come here. If you were an Adams student, they would come here. If you're a Washington student, they would come here for the year. No. That's understand, that's a, yes. They would have the principal, the staff, and everything would be, we would staff this building as if it were going to be the new building, and that's how they would work with it. Yep. Well, the safe, here, I'll give you a safe bet here. If you can, see the school or you can walk to the school, chances are that's the school you're going to go to. If you're on a bus, then those obviously, but I mean, and that's why, that's really one of the reasons why we tried to do what we did in these plans was to that's really one of the reasons why we tried to do what we did in these plans was to actually really one of the reasons why we keep an identifiable area for that particular building. And utilize the sites and the areas that we have so that the kids that are walking, that are accessible, can still walk to that school. It may not be down on this side of Madison, on Main Street. It may be on, up here on Main Street. But again, with Dewey, it's going to be at Dewey. At Monroe, it's going to be at Monroe. For Berry Ann, it's moving a couple blocks to a site we own at Irving. So again, the kids that are close to the school would probably still go to that attendance center. It's as we start going the outline, how we would establish those boundaries. Yes, ma'am.
My concern is with using the Irving site. I was a teacher there for 4 years until it closed, and that area is very unsafe. I know there are 30 registered sex offenders within a 12-block radius of that school, and they're just having a meeting there tonight at Parsons, which is right across the street, because of all of the drugs that are in that area. I mean, we had meth houses that were a block away. To me, that is a very unsafe area of town to be putting a brand new school.
Okay.
Back to the neighborhood schools. You're talking about K through 3, or third grade.
K5.
No, right now.
Right now we're K3, correct.
I'm not going to let my kindergartner walk to school by himself. Nobody else. So the neighborhood concept, it's not in today's world. It's 30 years ago when moms or whatever would stay home and dads would, and then they walk to school. That doesn't happen.
But we're still trying to build a community at the building. It's not just a fact of whether they walk or not. It's trying to build a community of people that is served by that school. So it's not just about walking. It's about serving a community. It's about serving an area. It's about being able to identify an area of the district with the building and such. And depending on what side of the fence you're on, there's people that don't like that arrangement. So.
If you would even consider this, you have 8 facilities, properties that you can sell. Sell 8. And you can take the money that you make from those properties and put towards the building of the new high school and the addition onto the senior high.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yep. And based upon the information, and the teachers were able to fill out the survey too, and when we asked on there, were you an employee or not an employee, so we did get the information. Again, overwhelmingly, that was the arrangement that was both from the community and school personnel. The K5, 6, 8 arrangement was what was preferred. Yes, sir.
Based on your projected savings you're going to save over this concept, what are you going to do with savings? What's your plan as far as saving dollars?
Well, hopefully it'll cover what the state isn't paying us. Right now, the state's about $1 million or so behind on our transportation from what we should get. We're continually, right now we're at 85% of general state aid that we're supposed to get. Next year they're talking about maybe at 80%. So it's just going to cover normal expenses just to keep us going. So, and we don't know how energy is going to rise and in the future and things like that. So it's am I going to eliminate 15 teachers based upon that? No. It's going to go to cover our current operating costs and where we're going. So, yes, sir.
What's your total based on your 3 new schools and stuff like that? Total annual savings?
Actually, I didn't add it up.
I couldn't either because you went through it.
Oh, sorry.
I would think that might be something that would be a nice number to have. What you project for saving on when you, the energy costs and the reduction in staff and everything added together, what?
It's just quick numbers off the top of my head. It's about $1,250,000, give or take, per year. Now, again, we're talking in, we're talking in different funds. Transportation has to go to transportation. The maintenance cost has to stay in operation and maintenance, and the the education fund costs to stay in the education fund. So, because I save $500,000 in transportation doesn't mean I can take those savings over to the ed fund.
Correct. Over the life of the bond, you're going to save close to what, say half of what the cost of the buildings are?
Depending on how you want to, project it out and look at it, there's about a 17-year payoff that we would have. The money that we'd pay out for construction and the savings and stuff that we'd have would take about 17 years to balance, to make a payoff on it. 17 years. 17, 1-7. Again, that's on a, like our other facilities, buildings here, these are going to be 100-year buildings. I mean, they're going to be here for a while. So.
This is based on, we're going to do this, we just can't go on with anything else, we have to do this.
These are the 3 plans that the board, that based upon input from the board and the community, that we put forth to the Board of Education. The board can make a decision to decide, no, we don't want to do that, we want to do this, we want to make changes, things like that. But these were the 3 plans that came forward, and these are the 3 plans that the board, at least at this point, has directed me to continue to deal with and work with and try to develop.
The point being is 3 plans all include building something, there is not a 4th option of not building.
Well, the 4th option, not building anything, we could do. But the 4th option of not building anything is still going to cost $71 million in life safety work or work to maintain our buildings over the next 20 years. So, there's a cost to doing nothing, and that cost of doing nothing is still $70-some million.
And the cost of building, we add the cost of the buildings and the projected cost of keeping them up. Because obviously, if they're new, there's no limitation.
We're talking, again, if we use the estimates here on the one plan, we're talking about $86 million. So there's about $11 million additional cost between the 2. Yes, sir.
Take it to the new ability for building, because I know in the preliminary meetings we had before, we talked about some like other buildings that go around colleges. They were temporary buildings that were built years ago.
Mm-hmm.
These new buildings, is that going to be a situation?
We're 100, as I said, they're 100-year-old, but we're going to build them to last 100 years. Based upon current construction methods and stuff like that, we're not going to, look at the Monroe and Ellington when they're put up, were put up, rather quickly and stuff like that. That's not what we're looking to do. We're looking to build very solid, very lasting facilities. Yes, ma'am.
So, the building we're going to have at the high school, the 9th grade,
Mm-hmm.
would that be the same as the prototype of the other buildings?
No, that 9th grade, that's the total.
That's the same dollars.
Right, it's the same dollars, but it would be built for the high school and built for the science labs and things that they need at the high school. It's also would be some renovations to the high school to be able to accommodate the additional 500 students, expansion of the cafeteria, food service areas, things like that. So it's not, they're two different types of facilities. Yeah, I mean, it's the best I can say. It's like buying a car and buying a truck. The car may be, $13,000, and the truck is $13,000, but they're really two different vehicles or two different types of things. So.
And then the second question is, so Baldwin already houses about 1,600 kids. So if you're gonna go down to 600 kids
Mm-hmm.
with the K-5, what are you gonna do with the rest of the space?
Bulldoze it. Except for this section that we're sitting in here, the auditorium, Blue Devil Gym, and then the areas kind of directly south and west of here. Open space probably, or we would look at some additional parking or rearranging as far as bus drop-offs and things like that. So.
Can I suggest the board office move here? Sell that building?
A little bit too much room here. That's the problem. And a lot of the space here, if you look at it, what's in classrooms and what's in hallways and such, there's as much space in some of the hallways and stuff like that there is in classrooms here. So it's not the most efficient use of space.
Are your life safety numbers based on like the last 20 years of what you've spent?
Yep.
Over the last 20, is that what you?
And projection for the future.
Projected with inflation and.
Yep.
And that kind of
Yep.
value, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And they're based upon, life expectancy of a roof is 20 years and, those types of things. So, Jeff, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Yes. One thing I wanted to mention was now starting to talk about phasing in. I think we have a chance to be successful. Ron mentioned best shot is to set shot from 80 mil by phasing it in. One thing that you want to keep in mind, that demographics change. They were trying to build that high school back from the mid-60s, and when it finally got approved and built in 73, by 1976 they realized they didn't need to build it. So that's still something that is not very popular, and that's why I recommend, that's why I commend you to phase it in. The demographics can change. With this Common Core coming through, more people might want to put their kids in private schools or more homeschooling. You might have a big demographic shift. And what I would recommend that you do, if somebody's giving a plan, do 4 phases, 15 million every 3 to 4 years per school. And you could do that, like first, say, phase it on the north edge of town, a new school, like on North 12th Street, or on, maybe around Harrison on the south end, phase that in. And then one thing that you might want to talk to your treasurer about is the property, this old St. Mary's. They're going to be moving people, I understand they're going to be moving people from that facility to the new facility at Blessing. That would be an excellent spot to use for the third school. You might even be able to physically use that building in Old St. Mary's until you build the new property. And you phase in the K through 5. You get to the K through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, but you phase in. You do K through 4 first. You borrow $15 million from one school. Say you do that one on far north 12th Street, the north edge of the district. Okay, then that would take pressure off the whole system. That's the K through 5 school. But all the other schools would still be, after that was built, would gradually shift from the K through 4. You put 5th, 6th, and 7th at junior high. You put 8th and 9th here. You leave 10th through 12th there. And then as you put each phase, you reevaluate. Maybe you don't even use 2 elementary schools instead of 3 because the demographics change. After about 9 to 12 years, you have the 3 elementary schools built. To back up the renovations, you put in a line of credit to offset as the working cash bond is paid off. So if you need extra money. And then you do your final phase would be $5 million to renovate the high school and put 9 through 12 all together, and then put 8 back in with 7th and 6th. As you complete all 3 buildings, there's all your elementary schools are now K through 5, no K through 4s anymore. And then you have the K through 5. And then you have 6th grade at junior high, and then 9th to 12th over there, and you can bulldoze everything except the gym, everything here, if you wanted to go that way. But you might say, after you get through the 3rd phase, maybe you like having just 8th and 9th here, you have 8th through 12th all on one campus, and then you have just 6th and 7th at junior high. And you can do it, you might like it that way. But then you have your K through 5, 6 through 7, 8th and 9th in this building, and 9 through 12. But you have 8 through 12 in one campus. And you would do it for about $50 million, doing it at 15, 15, and 50 over a 3 to 4 year period, and backing up the renovations by
by using a line of credit. I know you'd be really concerned with that money, because I understand it's not your ed fund, so I know you wouldn't be overhitting that. So that way you would save about 30 million that way. But at least, except for the cost to choose line of credit, that's the part that would be fudge, because I don't have access to data that you do. So that's that way, and you'd still be by phases, because you haven't even started paying back this working cash bond. You haven't made principal one payment. It's not, according to your audit, until 2015, you paid 1.1 million. You still owe 6.2 million on the working cash bond. All you paid are fees and interest. So that would be what you, and I think it would work.
I'm not, Jeff, to be honest, I'm not sure of the legality of using a line of credit to pay for construction. I'm not sure if that's an acceptable ability to do that. So, but you bring up an interesting concept. You bring up something that we have not discussed. I mean, we've discussed doing that type of arrangement. We discussed going, again, we've discussed building it on campus. We've discussed, what it would take to move everybody to one location. I mean, we've looked at a number of different plans, a number of different ways to do it. We just feel that the 3 plans that we're offering here meet the criteria that the board has given us to provide. So.
Yeah, just some food for thought.
Yes, ma'am.
As a parent of 3 children that are all in elementary, college, and junior high right now, seeing the phase 1 plan, I can see that you've done a great deal of thought in doing less transition for our students. And I know that my children are going to be impacted by this plan, no matter how it works out. And I appreciate the fact that you looked at what sort of transition it is for our children. And I know that they're going to be impacted by what happens here, but I like the fact of the K-5, the middle school concept and the high school concept long term, and the minimizing the disruptions of where they have to go. There's going to be a disruption for our students, for our faculty, for our community, and all over. But your plan of just getting in there, let's do one plan that takes care of all of it at one time, as opposed to stretching it out over years and years. It's going to be less disruptive on our children and on our faculty, and I can appreciate that about the first one.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So when they do put up the referendum, it's going to be just, it will be the yes or no.
Correct. You can't do options. Unfortunately, the state law doesn't allow us to say, choose from one of the above. That'd be nice, but well, to be very honest, once the board, if the board chooses to put this to a referendum, basically my role changes, and then the only thing I can do is talk factually. We want to sell X number of bonds to do this. I can't say this would be a great thing, and how what it would do for the kids and do to the community. I can't do that as in my position. Same way with the board member, stuff like that. So there would have to be a community group that would have to step forward to promote the referendum and educate the public, to support or not support it. So, Bill. Sorry.
I said this with other people. The way I sort of look at this thing here is, over the last 20 years, we spent $53 million doing life safety work in our old buildings. And life safety work is something required by the state. We don't have an option. We have to do it. So if we don't address new buildings, we're going to spend $60 to $70 million over the next 20 years, pumping money into old buildings that we have. And when we're done 20 years from now, we're going to have 7 to 8 buildings that are 100 years old, that are functionally obsolete, do not need ADA, and we're faced with the whole ground pumping good money in old buildings again. So it seems, well, what's happened here over time with finances and restructuring, the district is facing a great opportunity coming up here in a few years with the bonds going off, debt capacity. I would much prefer to see my tax dollars paying debt on new buildings and paying debt on life safety work for old buildings. I think that's really the question that, as a public, we have to look at.
Anybody else? Jeff?
Just a quick comment on the plan that I posed or outlined. By doing that, I think what you So that's something we have to run the numbers by. We do the first phase, do that over a 10-year amortization. The second phase, do that over a 15-year amortization. And then the third, a lot of you paid up in the third phase back to 10. If you set it up right, you can basically set it up that you, even though the taxes would be stable and flat, over time, you know, they would generally go down. So, but you still get your 3 new roads built, and if you went for phase 4, you would get a 9 through 12 high school if you decide to go to phase 4.
All right, well, thank you all. If you feel like it, we're doing this again tomorrow, 7 o'clock here. You're more than welcome to come back. Same show, but the questions may be a little bit different. So, again, thank you for coming out.